So in our last session we have seen that how to use controller child and parent as an example, and in this session we will see what is event in AngularJS, how a controller can be used in another controller. In another way you can say how to use multiple controller. So those things we have already covered in our previous session. In today's session we will discuss about what is Angular events. So you must have heard about the term events. So what is event? Event is something which happens by result of something, or by automatically you could say. So whenever something happens, this is called an event. In the term of AngularJS, whenever an event happen, it is raised by some event. We can say we can raise that event, and once the event is raised, then we can handle that event. So these things are done in AngularJS event. Okay, so for that thing, what we do, we simply use some predefined events also, and we also do these kind of thing by custom AngularJS events. So today we will see both of these aspects, that what is predefined events and what is custom events. So what is predefined events? So whenever you perform some actions in your web page, like when you open a web page, you load your content, web content, or you could say when you click on some button, or when you type something, so those things are called the DOM event. Okay, so that is also handled by AngularJS. So whenever I write something, it is called ng key press. Whenever I click some button, it is called ng click. So in this way there are lots of events which is being handled by AngularJS, and these are the DOM events. Okay, and some events are like AngularJS is basically they are totally responsible for that. What is that? So that kind of event is like something routing. So when you do routing in AngularJS, so that is done by AngularJS itself. So routing is another concept in AngularJS that we will discuss in our upcoming sessions. So what is routing exactly? So suppose I am writing something in my URL, or I am clicking some button and it is making some URL. So that URL is containing suppose home, or it could say containing suppose contacts. So whenever home is containing in my URL, so I will call some another controller, some another view, depends on that routing string. So that is something like routing is. Okay, so I can handle that, or it's not like we handle that, it's handled by AngularJS itself. So Angular checks that what is the URL right now. If it is home, it will call a home view, it will call home controller, and whenever it is contact, it will automatically call contact controller and contact view. So in this way it is handled by AngularJS, and it checks for the what are the string in my URL and which controller I need to call in order to perform this page. So this is all about writing. I will see more about on this what is routing exactly and how we can do this routing in our AngularJS program. So this is handled by AngularJS. So this is a part of what I have told you, that we will see two aspects. That one is predefined events and another is custom events. So this is all about predefined events which we have discussed right now, and let's move to custom events. What is that and how to use, and what are the benefits of using custom events? So what is custom events? Suppose some event, whenever I raise some event and handled by suppose I raising some event and I am handling that, then that is called custom events. So in our program, in our AngularJS application, there are some scenario where developer need to raise some event, they need to handle those events at the same time. So these type of things are called custom AngularJS events. Okay, so what are the things which are responsible for doing custom events in AngularJS, or what are the those keywords which are useful to achieve this concept in AngularJS? So those are nothing but three things are basically used. or you could say three things. So first of all, the first thing is we have to use $emit, and then $on, and then $broadcast. So these things are basically used whenever you are concerned about using custom AngularJS events. So to raise events, we have to use either $broadcast or $emit. So when you use these two, so ultimately you are raising that event by using these concepts, that is $emit and $broadcast. So you have now raised that event, so you need to catch that event, you need to handle that event. So for handling that event, what you will do, you will write in your controller $on. So $on lets you handle the event which is raised by either $emit or $broadcast in your controller. So in this way, these three are very useful to generate custom events, to use custom events like $broadcast, $events, and $on. So these are done in two levels. So what are those? First is at scope level, and the second is at root scope level. So I know that you are new to root scope, you don't know much about what is root scope. So let me tell you about that in brief only. So root scope is what? It is something, a custom, an object, and JavaScript object, which allows you to access your variable throughout your application. It means that suppose I am using root scope in my program, and when I am going to use that variable or that function, so that is something which is root scope is providing. So root scope is providing that accessibility, means it's a kind of a public function, you can say, or you could say it's a global function, you could say, or global variable. So it's a kind of that thing. So it's allow you to access all the variable throughout the application. Suppose I am in controller A and I want to access the variable of controller B, then what I will do, I will create some root scope variable, and that variable I will use in controller A as well as in controller B. So in short, root scope is something whose life is throughout the application, which can be accessed by anywhere and by any controller at any time. Okay, so this is what root scope is. You could say that it's something like a global variable. It is accessible to everywhere. So this is root scope. So these custom events, that the AngularJS custom events, this is also done by two levels. The first is scope level. That means whenever I am in controller 1, so in that controller only that scope would be limited. So that is called scope level. Okay. When I am in controller 2, in controller, or could you say in child controller, then that scope of that child controller, I am limited to that only. So in this way, it is, you could say that it is a scope level. I am using that events in scope level, and when I am using that event in root scope level, so what does it mean? That whether I am in controller A or in controller B, I can access or I can handle that event whenever I want. So it could be handled in controller B, in controller A, or in controller XYZ. So this is what is done on root scope level. Okay. So these are the two levels where we can use that $broadcast and $emit. So in this way we can say that these are the things, and these are my levels where I can use $emit and $broadcast. So in this session we have seen that what is event in AngularJS, and in next session we will see what is events in details.